This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, Steph, would you like to try roll call?
Yeah, Ike, are you on?
I'm on.
Bob, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay. Kathleen, I see you. Anita, I see you. Tina, Colleen, Mayor, yes. And Karen is absent this evening. So we are good, President Leonard. We can get started.
Okay, thank you. By the authority vested in me, I hereby declare this meeting of the Conshohocken Borough Council duly open and ready to conduct any business that may come before it. Thank you for joining us for a regularly scheduled public work session. At this time, please mute your audio lines. No public comments will be permitted during the course of the meeting until the designated public comments section located on the agenda. You will be notified during the meeting when public comments are permitted. You may also submit written comments via email to brogers@conshahockenpa.gov. A member of the Borough Administration will read public comments submitted in this manner. For all comments, please include your name and address for the record. Thank you in advance for your cooperation during our remote meeting. Prior to the work session, Council led an executive session on personnel and property matters. The first item on the agenda is under Council business. The first one is to conduct an interview for the Municipal Sewer Authority Board. The first interview is with Thomas Lonergan. Are you present, Mr. Lonergan?
I am, yes.
So thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
And your interest in the Sewer Authority Board. So my first question to you would be very basic. Why do you want to serve as a member of the Sewer Authority Board?
Sure. So I'm lived in Conshohocken for a couple of years now, and I thought this would be a good way to give back to the community, to the borough. I have a lot of experience in government, helping to do everything from grant writing to securing financing for development projects. So I thought that with that expertise and knowledge of working with a lot of authorities, whether they're industrial development authorities or redevelopment authorities, that is one way I could help to give back.
Okay, thank you. Is there any particular issue that you believe needs to be addressed by the Sewer Authority Board?
Off the top of my head, nothing right now, other than I know that I definitely would want to be caught up to speed on, I know the previous debate going back and forth in terms of the sale of the municipal authority. But other than that, I would just need to have a little bit more information in terms of what some of the meeting minutes were. I know I went back through a couple of them, and it seems like there's a couple things that keep popping up. But nothing off the top of my head that I would say I have a strong opinion on right now.
Okay. Is there anyone on council with a question?
Tom, have you attended any of the sewer authority meetings that are public meetings?
Not recently, but I did go back and watched. I did watch the last two sewer authority meetings just to get a little bit more familiar on some of the more current issues that were being asked.
Okay. And Tom, do you know anyone that presently serves on the Sewer Authority?
I do not. Nope, I do not.
Okay. And I have no more questions. Does anyone else on council have any questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time and your interest. Council truly does appreciate it.
Thank you guys for the opportunity. I appreciate it too.
You're very welcome. So the next item on the agenda is conduct interviews for board and commission reappointments. The first interview is with Mr. Bonavida Cola. I hope I did not kill that too
You said
much.
that correctly.
Thank you.
I'm on the
For
line.
reappointment on the Board of Code Appeals.
That's correct.
Okay. So if you could explain your time to date on the Board of Code Appeals and why you would like to continue to serve.
Sure. So the position has not exactly been demanding. It's my understanding that there's not a lot of appeals that would make their way to me essentially, so I haven't had any in my time as on the board, but I understand the position of what the appeal would entail, and I'm prepared to take, any adjudication into, consideration for the enforcement or non-enforcement or, interpretation of whatever code happens to be at issue based on my experience in the construction field for, over 10 years, either as a defense attorney or as a professional liability insurance adjuster.
Okay. So what do you believe are the three greatest strengths of the Borough of Conshohocken?
I think civil participation is certainly one of the greatest strengths. There's a lot of people that want to get involved. I think the borough's commitment to its continued development and beautification is another notable aspect of Conshohocken. And probably I'd say the overall atmosphere of just everyone being welcoming and having a community feel among the citizenry is probably the three strengths I could think of off the top of my head.
Thank you. Anyone else on council with questions for Mark?
I do not have any.
Okay. Okay, Mark. Well, thank you again for your interest, and I'm glad that you really haven't been called on. But we do appreciate your interest in fulfilling this role again, as it truly is, when it comes down to it, if necessary, an important role. So we do appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next person on the agenda for interviews for reappointment to the Planning Commission is Judy Smith Cresley. Judy, are you here this evening?
Yes, I am. Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you too, Judy. So, Judy, if you could make one change or important improvement to the Borough of Conshohocken, what would that change or improvement be?
Wow. The wish list, let's see. I think probably number one on my agenda, as well as others that I've spoken to, is the traffic situation and the parking situation. Trying to improve it in some capacity.
Okay. And up until this time, as you're serving on the Planning Commission, why do you want to continue in that role?
Well, I first was asked to join by former president of Borough Council, Paul McConnell, and that was to fill in the spot of someone that had to resign before their term was over. And so in doing that, I got familiar and I went to the educational programs, and it was great so that I could then renew for the next 4 years. And now I'm renewing, hopefully, for the next 4 years after that. I feel being on Planning Commission gives me a chance to give back to the community while I still work full time for United Healthcare. I still work from home full time, and I want to have a pulse on what's going on in the community, not just as a neighbor and resident, but also seeing and hearing what's going on with the people that are in charge.
Okay, does anyone from council have a question for Judy?
Judy, it's Anita. Do you feel comfortable now on the Planning Commission and understanding what is involved in looking at the plans and making decisions as what we'd like to see as a borough?
Oh, yes, I feel quite comfortable getting the plans, looking at them, being ready to ask questions at the time of the meetings. I would like to see perhaps maybe more proactive approach from Planning Commission, not just reactive to people applying for things. So, but Stacy's in charge. She's our chairperson, and so I'm following her lead.
Judy,
Thank
on
you.
the year, Judy,
Go
it's
ahead.
Tina. On the years that you've served on the Planning Commission, and when you look back, what would you say is a project you're most proud to have been part of?
I was on the
And why?
comprehensive plan task force, which was not directly with Planning Commission, but big picture. That was something I volunteered for as a planning commissioner to represent the borough on that task force, because I think the comprehensive plan is really important. Most proud of, I don't know, there've been a lot of projects that have come our way. I believe I've listened to all of the proposals with an open mind and stated my opinion based on my own knowledge and life experience and my thoughts for the forward movement of the community. There isn't one particular project that I can think of that I'm most proud of serving on. It's a package. I'm not,
Great.
sorry.
No, that's okay. That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so Judy, I do have one more question, and I know this has been a challenge for you in the past. Are you willing to take on the responsibility of making decisions that are in the best interest of the majority of the borough, even though they may be somewhat different or opposed by a minority of the residents?
The answer is yes. I feel that I try to make the decision, the vote or whatever, based on my knowledge and my listening and my observing, not necessarily on a public opinion pulse.
So, and it's also based on the comprehensive plan, correct?
Yes,
By that of Conshohocken and the county.
yes, that's why I wanted to be involved with the comprehensive plan, to become more familiar with it and see the process of rewriting it for the next decade.
Right, which is not always necessarily in line with all of our groups and committees.
Sure, there's always going to be differences of opinion, and that's what's great about being on a council like this, is there's discussion. And so people's voice is able to be heard, and I think that's part of what democracy is all about.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Judy? Okay, thank you this evening for your time, Judy, and for your interest and your service to date. We appreciate it. Okay, the next item on the agenda is manager matters, and I will turn that over to Stephanie.
Thank you, President Leonard. We have a few escrow releases for the next items on the agenda. Again, all of these escrow releases have been inspected by our engineer, and recommended releases are in your meeting material packages along with designated figures. So I'm going to go through the next three items. 120 West 11th Avenue maintenance bond release in the amount of $3,973.60. Would be a motion to approve the release.
I'll make that motion.
Griffin.
We have a motion by Ms. Barton, a second by Mr. Griffin. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
The next is to approve the release of 120 West 11th professional services escrow in the amount of $696.38.
I'll make that motion. Ike Griffin.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
And the last escrow release is 7 Tower Bridge Financial Security in the amount of $345,940.68.
I'll make that motion, Sokolowski.
I'll second that. Ike Griffin.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is a housekeeping item. The 2019 Liquid Fuels Program, we are at the position where we are filing an application for payment 2, which is final. And I need council's approval to process the payment application in the amount of $136,169.55. And that money is directly out of the liquid fuels grant money that is provided through the state.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
Ainsley.
Kathleen.
I'll second it, Barton.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
We received a request from the residents at the 300 block of West 7th Avenue for a block party. The neighbors are looking for approval. This has been vetted by administration. It would be from 2 to 6 p.m. on October 23rd. They are requesting that the street be closed. There's no outside vendors. Everything else is general based off of other block parties that we have in the borough. So the request in front of you this evening is to approve that request for October 23rd, 2021.
I have a concern with that.
Okay?
If they block off the entire street, in other words, width-wise, then the residents who live up on the upper end of 7th aren't going to be able to get in and out for 4 hours. If they Go ahead.
Go ahead.
If they block off just half the street plus their pavement, I think at least the traffic would be able to get through. There is no other way on 7th to get up to those homes except for going up 7th. That's my only concern.
So I know that we will definitely discuss that with them. I know that they did ask the HOA of Parkview to open the fire escape gate so that they could divert traffic that day of their event. So we'll have to confirm whether or not they got approval to do that or not. And if they did,
Okay.
Then
I'll be fine with it.
Then you'll be fine with it. If it's not confirmed or approved, then we'll indicate to them that they have to utilize, or if they could use a smaller portion of the street. Is that
Correct.
fair?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Other than that, yeah, go for it.
Okay, so with those considerations in mind, I would need an approval. I mean, a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve it with restrictions.
Right. And a second.
I'll second it with attention.
Thank you, Ike. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
And then the last item I have under manager matters is that Governor Wolf on May 30th of 2020 issued a proclamation of disaster in response to civil disturbance and unrest throughout Pennsylvania. That authorized PEMA to use all available resources and personnel as deemed necessary to cope with the emergency events. PEMA established the Law Enforcement Assistant Grant Program to help municipalities mitigate the emergency costs that were incurred by law enforcement response to civil disturbance and unrest. The Borough of Conshohocken has applied for the grant to help offset the costs associated with police overtime in response to protests that occurred throughout the borough. In order for us to finalize and execute the contract, we need to designate a signer by resolution to again, submit the contract to PEMA. So through the grant, the borough is entitled to receive $10,389.84. So this evening, I'm asking council to consider approving Resolution 2021-27, which designates the borough manager as an authorized signer to execute contracts related to the Law Enforcement Assistance Grant Program.
I'll make that motion, Sokolowski.
I'll second. Go ahead, Kathleen.
I'll second, Kingsley.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is legal matters. The first item on the agenda is a discussion on the animal control ordinance. With that being said, I will turn this over to Ms. Checco and Mr. Peters.
Thank you, President Leonard. So just to recap kind of the process of the animal control ordinance. So the borough, for the last couple of years, had been receiving complaints as it related to feral cat populations and noise issues related to roosters. And there was conversations back and forth between residents and borough administration and borough elected officials. We did some research and we pulled resources from other municipalities to look at different language and different options that existed as it pertains to animal control. We got to the point where there was a draft ordinance that was presented to council at a work session publicly. We did receive feedback from residents that were on the call who provided information in pertaining to their opinions and their feelings as it related to the ordinance that was discussed and presented. That was then on another public agenda, specifically to advertise the ordinance as drafted. And I think that what's transpired over the last couple of weeks really illustrates the success of the legislative process. The borough has appreciated all of the feedback that we've received, whether it be through email or phone calls. We've had a few people actually come to the borough office that we've spoken to directly. And I know that the elected officials in particular have fielded emails and phone calls and have really done a great job of kind of working through with our constituents concerns or thoughts or support or non-support of the ordinance as it was drafted. So I think just taking a second to kind of highlight why the legislative process is the way it is and kind of how this particular example illustrates that success. I know that More Than the Curve has also highlighted kind of the process that the borough went through as it pertains to the animal ordinance. So just kind of a lot of community participation that has led us to this point. So the purpose of putting it back on the agenda this evening is really to address some of the items that we've seen or that we've received directly as it pertains to the language as drafted. So just to start with kind of where we were in terms of administratively presenting the draft ordinance that we did to our elected officials. We took the concerns and complaints that we received from our residents. We pulled draft language from neighboring municipalities across southeastern Pennsylvania. We utilized our legal resources in terms of drafting the language. And we, as we always like to be, went through what we feel was a thorough process in terms of not just looking at what we had really received complaints about, which were feral cat populations and the feeding of feral cat populations and kind of how that creates a nuisance and a health issue, and noise as it pertains to roosters and also dogs off leash. So those were kind of the three main complaints and concerns that we had on file from our constituents. And then in looking at other ordinance, there were lots of regulations as it pertains to chickens. So while they were even in greater length than what we provided in our draft ordinance, we did consolidate it greatly I think that in this instance, our attempt to be thorough and our attempt to kind of evaluate other municipalities and what may or may not for other municipalities put our elected officials and our residents maybe in an uncomfortable position where maybe we were trying to put regulations as it pertains to chickens where we shouldn't have. So again, we're always going to do our best on behalf of our elected officials, and by we, I mean our administration. And I think that we're always going to try to present you with all of the information, because if we aren't presenting thorough, concise information for you to evaluate, then we're not putting you in a position really to evaluate the situation at large. So this leads us to now, after a couple years of work. And I think that if we're evaluating not only phone calls and emails, public comments that we received, but also kind of across social media, just to clarify some of the issues that we've saw recently, we're just confirming that as it pertains to running off leash in the drafted ordinance as is, that does pertain to all animals. So just confirming that point. I know that there was a lot of concern that we heard about feral cats and the animal control officer and what does in fact happen after those feral cats are addressed. They will be taken to an SPCA, a local SPCA who's already been contacted and knows that we're working through this ordinance. And then over the next couple weeks or months, it'll be put in place once we've taken all this feedback and kind of revised it. So confirming that they will be taken to an SPCA. There will be no killing of the cats by our animal control officer. We're confirming that individuals who had roosters prior to the adoption of the ordinance will be grandfathered, and the borough will roll out a mechanism and a timeline by which residents who currently have roosters will need to submit proof of ownership to the borough. So again, that's kind of a process that we'll work through and find out what works best, but we will put language that defines that process in the final version of the ordinance once it's ready to go back in front of council for consideration. The animal control officer, just to clarify, is not a full-time position in the Borough of Conshohocken. They will actually be a consultant. So there will be overcosts in the range of $20,000 to $25,000 on an annual basis. That will be formalized in an agreement, but there will be no other overhead or personnel costs related to that position because it will be a consultant as needed position that's solidified by an agreement with the Borough of Conshohocken. And again, there's timeframes that are built in terms of violation or penalties of when they kick in. So again, subject to fines, but there'll be regulations as it relates to 24 hours of it being realistic before we can actually issue citations, evaluate situations to determine whether there's compliance or non-compliance with the ordinance. So I think that those were kind of some of the highlights that we needed to clarify based off of some of the feedback we received. And then I guess the big issue for this evening is to start breaking down kind of the different categories of animals as it relates to what we feel is specific to the Borough of Conshohocken. So I think everyone knows that the chickens in particular and regulations with the chickens was an extremely hot topic over the course of the last couple of weeks. So I know that there was deliberate and strategic conversations between elected officials and residents, really as it pertains to the chickens themselves. And so I think this evening, after we're taking all of that into account, what your administration is suggesting for council to consider is that at this time, in our attempt to be thorough and include the different categories of animals, we're thinking that we potentially put you in a position to create an issue where there may not have been one. I think the one positive step is that we we now know how important chickens are to our residents. And I think that we wouldn't have known that. And I know we didn't know that internally. So in that instance, it's a very positive and beneficial conversation to have, because we kind of know what we need to address or not address or assist moving towards in the future. So what we're really looking at this evening is, if we're looking at the ordinance as drafted, is taking out and removing the majority of the section as it relates to the keeping of chickens. And the only thing we would include in there, because there's two sides to every evaluation as we're working through this, that there are nuisances that are created in some instances as it pertains to noise, not just of chickens, but kind of birds and fowl in general. I hope I'm saying that correctly. But that's kind of some of the conversations we've had with residents. So that particular language is something that we would be working through and keeping in. But again, that wouldn't be, we would be removing the regulations on chickens. So I guess with all of that being said, we talked about process and we talked about some clarifying points. I think we need to just, meaning, administration, my office, and your solicitor need to hear from council if you would like to move forward with redrafting the ordinance to remove and address the concerns on the regulations for the chickens.
I absolutely would.
Yes.
So,
Yes, and
Kathleen, yes.
I do think it's important when you're addressing the noise on the chickens that we also do need to address the, which has been a concern for some of the residents, the escaping of chickens. So I know right now, as of now, we don't really have any regulations on chickens at all.
No, we do not.
And I believe that we intend to leave it that way unless there is an issue. So I think that that needs to be looked at as to whether if we have actual, and not that the animal control officer, this needs to be made clear, with chickens and or cats is going to be driving around the borough looking for issues. It would be as an as needed basis based on concerns from the residents. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you're basically, the way the ordinance is drafted is that if there's the perceived nuisance or a perceived health issue, you have a private citizen now has a mechanism and a resource to reach out to address said perceived issue, instead of them having to deal with it directly with their neighbor, which can become an uncomfortable situation that we're trying to give basically we're attempting to provide a resource, an outlet,
Right.
and address the concerns as it relates to the feral cats, the dogs off leash.
And the roosters crowing.
Yep.
And the escaping of chickens.
Right, and the noise and or nuisance perception of the chickens with escaping. Yes.
Correct. And I think we also need to also set for the record, because on social media, this apparently was such a big deal. And I honestly don't know where it came from, because it wasn't in anything that the borough printed in our ordinance or printed anywhere. It has never been the intention of the borough or the hiring of an animal control officer to actually kill feral cats.
Yeah, no.
So I don't know where that came from, but I'd just like to set the record straight on that. So if you'd like to continue, Steph, or if anyone else has any questions from council.
No.
Suggestions?
No, I think, Colleen, I think you pointed out, and several of us have been discussing it, it's the we're not looking for feral cats, that we
Right.
would be acting on nuisance reports from neighbors and residents.
Could I clarify a point? So in the past, I've seen residents do trap and release. I brought up a couple of times in this discussion along Maple, just before COVID, we did a trap and release working with neighbors, and they got 34 cats using a nonprofit.
So if a trap and release is something that a resident does on their own, that's entirely up to them. I am going to point out that releasing them back continues to make them a feral cat. I'm correct on that, correct? Right, Steph?
With this ordinance, do residents still have the ability to do that?
I think the mayor broke up and then Colleen broke up. So I don't know if Mayor, if you wanted to finish, you broke up. The last thing we heard was the trap and release on Maple.
Okay, am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Yes.
So does this ordinance in any way prohibit residents from doing that?
No, it does not. Absolutely, it does not. The only thing it's presenting is, again, if there's a resident who wishes to not do trap, neuter, release, it gives them a resource to reach out to that is written by ordinance for animal control officer to come on site and do an investigation. And if it's deemed that they are in fact feral cats and they're violating the ordinance and creating a nuisance per the definition in the ordinance, then the cats would be taken to the local SPCA. But no, it doesn't hinder their ability to participate in a program like you spearheaded on Maple.
And that was not a program the borough spearheaded. That was a private
Correct.
group, correct?
Mayor supported, yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
And did we have any cats that got scooped up in error that might have been community resident cats that were out and about? Do we know? Because I think that is a concern as we move forward, is, identifying feral versus non-feral cats, right?
So
Tina, I don't know. The residents really spearheaded the involvement of the trap and release. So it's something I'd have to check back with them.
Okay.
So Tina, on that note, I'm going to say, like anything else, it is the responsibility of the resident who owns that pet, whether it be a cat, a dog, a rooster, to keep them leashed or penned or whatever. It is their responsibility to do that. So if they do, get picked up in a mix with feral cats, that's the resident's responsibility.
Well, I think the ordinance is very clear in terms of the definition of how you define a feral cat colony, or a stray cat. So the message that should be pushed out to the public, which again, this is going to go through another round of revision and another round of advertisement before council's even considering an adoption, are those definitions, which we've presented in writing, that were then published to the constituents of Conshohocken, are they clear?
Right.
You sent us your feedback as it related specifically to other portions of the ordinance. So I would urge everyone on the call, and anyone who isn't on the call, they're more than welcome to call, or we can email, or and discuss those three categorizations of feral cat colony, and stray cat.
And Stephanie, just to clarify, the last time that the animal ordinance was even addressed was how many years ago?
91.
I don't know. Mike, do you know that the year off the top of your head?
90s, Colleen, and some of these provisions, as you can tell, are much older than that. So
Right.
it hasn't been addressed substantively probably since the 80s or earlier.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was just trying to get that clarification. So, okay. Anyone else on council have any suggestions and or questions regarding the animal ordinance?
Yeah, I do, Colleen. I've been reading up a little bit on some of these trap and neuter release programs, and not all of them look at release as the optimum end point of it. Some of them think if the cats are socialized, can be adopted, that that's a better alternative than to release them into the wild, that only
Correct.
truly feral ones who cannot be socialized, who can't be handled, who won't come near people, they're the ones that would be the candidates for release. I mean, I don't know if this is under consideration, but I think if a cat is capable of having a home, it should have a home.
Right. And Kathleen, I could be wrong, and I know it's something the administration could look into, but I believe that's what the SPCA actually does, that they try to rehabilitate them, and if they can go to homes, they place them in homes. But
Right.
it is something that we can make, just double check on. But I think that's what they do.
There's a big organization in Philadelphia, I think it's called PUR, Philadelphia Urgent Rescue Relief. I'm not sure the exact wording, but they're more of getting the animals in, spaying them, neutering them, vaccinating them, testing them for disease, and pretty much separate out the ones who can have homes from the ones that really would do better being returned to their neighborhoods.
Okay.
And I mean, there's tons of these organizations, and they have different philosophies. So I think that's something that people have to realize, that if they have a particular affinity for a cat, it might not be coming back to their backyard.
Right. Understood. And that would, I think, directly relate more to individuals who do the trap and release on their own.
Yeah, and that's something that maybe this would get people to act for those animals that they care about, to do it on their own before it comes to that.
Right. Okay. Anyone else on council with any questions, concerns, comments?
So I guess what I need to know this evening is, are you, based off of everything we've received from the public and the feedback that we have, are you okay with administration moving forward with making a revision of the draft ordinance to remove, reword, and restructure the keeping of chickens section? Section
Yes.
4?
Yes.
All right, so we will look at that. Is there anything in particular? I think that running at large off leash was pretty much okay. The animal waste requirements were okay. Again, if you can take a look at the definitions of the feral cat colony, and the stray cat, and just let me know if you think that anything needs to be reworded or made clearer, that would be helpful. And then I think at that point, we would be, again, we'd have to make revisions, redraft, re-present to council the draft, and then at a later date, we would re-advertise. But is there anything else that I did not cover that you either discussed directly with any of your constituents that you'd like me to address in the revised ordinance?
I don't have any, Stephanie.
I don't either.
I do not have anything, Steph.
Okay. All right, well, we'll get to work on this. And again, I would urge anyone on the call, or anyone who couldn't get on the call, if you have any additional feedback you want to provide us as it pertains to those sections of the ordinance that will remain, happy to receive it and kind of work it into our revised draft. So don't hesitate to send them my way. or call the borough office and we can discuss it. But what the next steps would be is that we would be revising it. It'll most likely be back on a work session with a revised draft for further conversation to ensure we've hit all the clarifying points that we needed to. And then it'll be, if we feel like that draft accomplishes what we set out to do, then it would be back on an agenda for re-advertisement and we'll go through the legislative process. Any further questions?
Nope. Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay. All right.
I think this demonstrates that the process is an iterative process, and this is where we take feedback when we get it from our residents and build upon that. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for all the feedback that you gave me. You know, you were calling me nonstop, so I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is under council member and mayor matters, and it is a discussion on East 8th Avenue residential parking permit request. And I will turn this over to Kathleen Kingsley and this is a discussion only item this evening.
Yeah,
So,
hi. You might all remember we got an email in early September from Jessica Burdick at 21 East 8th Avenue. Jessica lives that's a small row of homes. There's 7 in a row, nestled between the Getty Station and Harry Street. And Jessica lives in the first house there. They've been having some issues there for several months now, if not longer, with cars that are being serviced and or stored at the Getty Station, taking up a lot, if not a majority of the parking on East 8th Avenue. So the residents are having a really tough time parking. There's only between the Getty Station, between Fayette and the row of houses, has 2 wide driveways. And then from the row of houses down to Harry Street, there's only about 5 parking spots. There's actually a fire hydrant there, so they're pretty much constrained to those 5 spots. And maybe between where the 2 driveways into the Getty Station and get a car or 2 in there. And the other side of the street is open, but again, the Getty Station will take up quite a few of the spots on the street, and the residents do have a tough time parking. As I said, there's 7 houses, so you got to figure there's probably 14 cars, if not more, and they don't have anywhere to park. They don't have an alley, and they would like to have permit parking there. I talked to a couple other residents on the street, but I haven't been able to reach all of them. I'm hoping that some of them will be on tonight and can make their case. I guess my question is, how do we go about doing that for them?
So Kathleen, what we would do, and I think I see Jessica on the call, so I will ask her to kind of jump in after we discuss it. But this is kind of the beginning of that, and then what we would do, we would do kind of go out, find out what the best options are. I know that our executive director of operations and chief of police, in preparation for tonight, have already kind of looked at the location, so they have some thoughts. But we really want to take all the feedback from the residents if they're on the call. I appreciate Councilmember Kingsley, you bringing it to our attention and kind of bringing it forth, and then we'll do an evaluation. And then if we do deem that either 2-hour parking on the block or permit parking or some assistance can be provided, then we would draft a revision of the parking ordinance and create stipulations in there specific to that location. And then it would be in front of you for consideration for the revision to the ordinance.
Can I just point out that the next block down, the 100 block of East 8th, does have that type of parking. The residents have their permits and everybody else is limited to 2 hours, and they don't ever seem to have any problems. There is a rather large office there that I think at one time really didn't have a lot of off-street parking. So the residents on that block I think the permit number 5. And on the first block, the one where Jessica lives, it would really help them a lot. And just having it on one side of the street won't do anything, because then the Getty station will just line up the other side of the street. But I'll let the residents make their case.
I also believe that for holidays like the 4th of July, it has been an issue with cars parked there from the Getty station when the no parking signs went up, because that is one of the areas where all the cars are for the soapbox derby and the setting up of it. And the cars were never moved. They were just left there. So there are a few issues with that. So
Yeah.
just
I
as
mean,
another point.
The Getty station does have a lot of cars. Some of them look as if they haven't moved in a very long time. In fact, I mentioned that the second driveway that goes in the Getty station it's cut out on the street, but it's no longer really a driveway, because there's what appear to be disabled cars parked across that. So that's not an in and out for the customers anymore. I think back in the day when they had U-Hauls there, that they used to use that. But they have a lot of cars on their lot, which is their own business, that don't seem to have moved in a very long time. And they do park on Fayette in front of the business, which again is not an issue. The issue is the residents of that first block need some relief.
Right. And maybe for the Getty station, it's more of a scheduling issue where they'll just have to schedule a little differently as to not block the street. So, but does anyone else have any comments from council?
I'm going to keep my mouth closed on this one.
Okay. So Steph, moving forward, I know that you said Ray and the chief already did go take a look at it. So I'm assuming
we're hoping to have feedback shortly in terms of what our recommendation is based on specific requests. And then we'll bring it again. What we would have to do is we would have to draft a revision to the parking ordinance. That ordinance would have to be in front of you for discussion. You would review the revisions and make sure you're comfortable with those revisions. And then the ordinance would have to be advertised. It then goes through the advertisement cycle, and then it is voted on. So unfortunately, it is not an overnight process. And I know that that can be frustrating, but the process has started.
Okay.
So thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you, Jessica.
Okay. The next item on the agenda will be public comment. So if there is public comment, now would be the time if anyone is there.
I guess we should start with, is there anyone on the call that has any public comment that they would like to make? If so, if you can just state your name and your address for the record.
Stephanie, it's Diane Del Buno, 216 East 4th Avenue. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I just really wanted to thank you for providing the background on the topic regarding the proposed animal ordinance. And I want to thank you for really going through the whole process with us and explaining how you landed on the language that was in the proposal. And thank you for accepting our feedback and really reviewing it and providing a good assessment of where we stand with that and what I think will turn out to be a good resolution. So thank you.
Very welcome. Diane, did you submit a written public comment?
Yes, I did. Did you receive it, Stephanie?
We did receive it, and I have it on file. I actually pulled out some of the comments that you had sent in and used it in kind of my discussion for this evening. So thank you for sending that.
Sure.
Do you want us to read your comment word for word at this point?
No, I don't think it's really necessary. And the reason why I did that was, number one, when I looked at your website, I saw that there was the ability to do that. And we started to formulate some points that we wanted to make. And I thought it would be better for you if we went ahead and submitted them in writing so that you would have an opportunity to look at them before this meeting, because it would really just take too much time to review all those points, and some of it might have been contentious. And so I think it worked out well this way. And I look forward to seeing what your redraft will be.
Yep.
And it sounds, you actually answered my question at the end of your summation on this topic, in that you would do the redraft and then re-present it to the council. And then based on those discussions, it would be a re-advertisement. So we, the constituents, would have an opportunity to review that again, I would imagine, and then provide comments if we need to. So I appreciate that also. It really did help explain a lot.
Great. Yes, that is accurate. So there will be no vote at the October 20th meeting. There will be a draft. It will be discussed with council. It will then be re-advertised. And
that sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for putting your comments in writing. We did utilize them, so they were very helpful.
Okay, I'm sorry if a little bit of it was I don't know what the word is, snarky, but it's it's personal.
It's all good. That's what we need to hear. We need to know it. And that's where we start making decisions off of. So it was very helpful. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Appreciate you taking the time to put that much effort into it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Diane.
Thanks, Colleen.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else for public comment this evening?
Hi, this is Alex Catania, West 7th Avenue.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Alex, in your house number?
137.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Well, I just wanted to say, yes, thank you for addressing the chicken issue and listening to the concerns of, all of the people I encountered who were supportive of the chickens. I do wish that, we could be more aware of these issues sooner and maybe directly speak to our council people sooner, though I do appreciate you, Anita. Thank you for coming up to talk to us about that.
You're welcome.
I don't personally have chickens, but my mom does, my neighbor does, and I just know how much really everybody appreciates them in our neighborhood. There's never been a complaint. I've talked to all my neighbors about this. The same with the cats, honestly, where I live, I have 2 cats. They go outside. I've since, replaced my cat that went missing around that time that they were trapped. And, my cats have their shots, they're spayed, all that good stuff. My neighbors love them. I think I am curious how that will be handled in the future, because I know I hear the words feral and I hear the words, stray, and they're not either of them, but they are outdoor cats. So I think I would love to, figure out how we're going to address that as well. There's a few outdoor cats in my alley area where my cats mostly stay, and it doesn't seem, honestly, my neighbors ask me where they are. I don't let them out for a couple of days because they like to visit with them also. So I think we need to take that into consideration as well.
Thank you for your comments, Alex. And I know that the borough and council strives all the time to reach the public on what is presented at the meetings and our discussions on it. So if anyone has any suggestions other than how we reach more people, it's been something, the ordinance has been something that has been discussed for 3 years now.
I'm sorry.
So if any of the residents do have suggestions on other than how we get what is on the agenda out there to more people, feel free to.
Well, how was it, I don't understand how it was put out there originally, because I didn't see this until the actual ordinance was posted. And I know, Diane had said in her comments, which she shared with me, that she wasn't able to access any of those past meetings, those notes online. So I'm just not sure.
So the agenda is posted. Every agenda is posted, whether it's a work session or a voting session. It is posted on our borough website. It is posted on social media like Facebook, and the agenda is there. Your access to the meetings, whether it's a work session or a voting session, is there. That's why I'm saying if anyone has any other suggestions, obviously you're saying that you didn't know. So going 3 years back, this has been a discussion for us at our work sessions. And until it gets to the voting point, we don't hear any feedback. So
Colleen,
yes, we
I'm sorry.
appreciate your feedback. Go ahead, Diane.
I was just going to say, so, I mean, for instance, we've had chickens for 15 years. We never
Right.
heard anything or any issues, et cetera. The only problems we've actually had were foxes, killing them, things like that. Not really any complaints. And the thing is, we heard about this through More Than the Curve, which I think a lot of people read and a lot of people have access to, and also word of mouth, which I think that's really how you're going to get to most people, because they don't anticipate that most people are going to, on a regular basis, go into the council borough website and be looking at agendas and minutes. However, when this topic did come up, I did have issues. Now, I could be technologically handicapped or something, but I could not find. I went through the past the September 1st agenda, the September 15th, September 22nd agendas. The agenda on the 1st and the 15th mentioned this topic, but then when I went to find the outcome of that, I went to the minutes. There were no minutes from September 1st and no video from September 1st. Again, maybe it was just my inability to find them, but I checked multiple times. September 15th, it was on the agenda, but there were no minutes. There was a video of the recording of the meeting, which I attempted to listen to so I could understand where this topic was coming from, not knowing that it had been going on for 3 years and not really interested in going through 3 years of minutes and agendas.
Correct.
But the video kept starting. You could get a couple words, then it would stop, then it would loop, then it would start, then it would loop, and I just didn't have the patience for that. And then the September 22nd agenda, from what I saw, the agenda was a little bit more abbreviated than the other ones that I had seen, and I could not gather that that was a topic on September 22nd, and then I couldn't find any minutes or any video. So it left me thinking that, it would be difficult then if someone hears about a topic and then goes to look at these things if they're not kept up to date, which was the point of my first question in the write-up that we had provided was, where did all this come from? But again, Stephanie explained it and I get it now.
Correct. And we're glad you get it. And if anyone does have any suggestions on ways to communicate with the residents better, we're happy to hear them. And we're also, council is always happy to communicate with the residents. Our phone numbers are out there, our emails are out there. So we're always there. There is nothing hiding anywhere. And I understand that you're saying about the minutes. So minutes are published a month later. Is that correct, Stephanie?
Yeah, so I know that, Diane, when we read your comment that you submitted, yes. So the issue is that council has to approve the draft minutes at the voting session that's after the meeting. So the September meetings will be on the agenda for council to consider approving at the October voting meeting. So there is a lag.
Yes, but you also understand in having that lag, if a topic comes up and we find out about it, and then we go to use your website to find out what's going on, that lag is leading up to the time in which you're proposing something and then going to be voting on something, and we may have missed the boat.
I'm not arguing that at all. I think what I'm trying to stress is that the reason why there's an advertisement portion of the ordinance, and there's no, I think this is what we want to happen. I get that there's a lag and there's a lag. So you're doing your research, you're looking for what you're looking for on the website. And really, if you're piecing it together now, there's pieces that are missing. You can't capture it. So we advertise a potential ordinance revision for this very reason. It captures the attention, and I understand that there's all different mediums by which we need to reach out to different individuals. So some individuals are not computer savvy, so we have a TV channel. Some individuals maybe aren't even aware of what's going on, and I think that's where they rely on More Than the Curve, because they're more inclined to reach out socially through a different medium than utilizing borough resources at their disposal. Some individuals need to call the borough. I mean, we had people that walked into our office, and we described the ordinance revision to them directly, face to face. This is exactly what's supposed to happen in the process. So if it's on a work session or it's on a voting meeting and you missed it on an agenda or you weren't there in person, the advertisement portion is another opportunity to get the information out to the public who needs to understand what's being put through to the public, and it captures your attention and it garners conversation, and we get to the point where we're now taking all of that feedback and creating a revision. So I think that this is, you know, we don't do a lot of ordinance revisions. So this isn't something that comes up on a regular basis. And I'm encouraged with the fact that we have so many engaged residents that we advertised an ordinance on an agenda, and we pushed it out to the public, and we actually had feedback. We're putting an ordinance in place that's relevant to Conshohocken, not just a rubber stamp.
Stephanie, yeah, Stephanie, to your point, and I appreciate all that you said and explaining all of that. And I was just really explaining the process that I attempted to go through. But, you know, I was able to find out the information I needed, again, through other ways. And that's what we all do, and that's what we all need to do if there's a topic that we care about. I'm very impressed at this point and after this meeting of hearing of all of this. I'm also impressed with, just as you are, with the feedback from the people in this town. I mean, I love Conshohocken. I didn't really grow up here, but I mean, it's a great town. I'm just really impressed with all the people that care so much about these topics and are able to, you know, take the time to come to this meeting and share with you. It's really, again, impressive. So thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
Thanks,
Is there anyone
Colleen.
else for public comment?
Yes, this is Jane Sikora. I live at 237 West 11th.
Hi, Jane.
Hi. One suggestion I would have maybe for communicating with the residents better is to maybe implement a text system. I mean, my kids have it at school. We have it at work. And it's something that people could sign up for, and a text blast could go out, because honestly, I don't know when there's, you know, issues like dangerous situations that are going on where cars are being broken into multiple times in a specific area, or, you know, when we had, unfortunately, the incident at the apartments, you know, a couple months ago. My kids take my dog outside to go to the bathroom at night before bed. That whole thing was going on. I live somewhat close to that. It would be nice to know, like, hey, there's a situation, you might want to, you know, stay inside, or there's an ordinance that's, you know, coming out, and here's a link to it. And if it's something that you sign up for, then you can go and read that ordinance.
So we do have that capability on our website right now. You can actually sign up to be notified of all different types of information. So if something new is posted to the website, or an agenda is posted, or an ordinance is posted, or an event is posted, you can get an email notification. It's basically kind of like if you, I'm trying to think of an example, but any other website, you know, if you want to be notified of like updates that happen to the website itself, you can go on, log in, create an account, and choose the types of information you want to be updated when it's in fact made to the website.
Is that just for email notifications though, or is there an option for text notifications?
I believe at this point it is just
I think it's
email.
just for email. I
Yeah.
noticed it.
I mean, honestly, I probably have like 4,000 unread emails. So, and I'm not even exaggerating. Like a text, everybody has their phone on them all the time. I mean, you know, not, well,
Yeah.
my grandmom's 82 and she's on her phone all the time. So, so I think, you know, if you could sign up for text alerts, that would be really helpful. And then,
So, yeah, we have an emergency system that does text messages. Don't know if we can cross that over into general text messages, but it's definitely, you know, I'm taking notes, so it's something I wrote down. We can look into it. It's not a problem.
okay. And then my only comment on the, you know, the cat ordinance is, you know, I do have 2 cats. They don't go outside, but I have family members who do have outside cats. And, you know, they don't necessarily have collars on. So going back to, you know, Alex's comment from earlier, I'm very curious as to how it would be determined that, you know, one cat is stray or feral as opposed to someone's outdoor cat. My neighbors across the street have a cat that goes outside. I didn't know it was their cat. I saw him one day. He was super friendly. And I was like, oh my God, this cat must be hungry. And I fed him. Like, but it's their cat. He lives across the street from me. I just didn't know it. So if I don't know that this cat that lives across the street from me actually lives across the street from me, I don't know how an animal control person is going to know that either. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration and accounted for so that you don't accidentally take someone's cat who is their pet and take it away to, you know, to the SPCA. And I understand that the SPCA's, you know, goal is to rehome these cats, but let's be honest, that doesn't always happen.
Right. Someone just posted to have chips put in their cats so that we can actually, how has that worked? I don't know whether he carries a specific type of gun in order to.
They would need a scanner, a chip scanner.
So, and Jane, you have to remember the only thing that is going to trigger animal control is a concern from a resident. It's not an everyday basis. And we appreciate your comment on it and your concerns, and it is something that we can consider. But just as a point, they're not going to be out there looking for cats. So thank you for your comments.
Yeah, I have 3 cats.
Public
My
comment?
house at home.
Is there anyone else for public comment?
Yes, this is, go ahead.
Okay. My name's Liz Lowry. I actually live in West Conshohocken. I'm at 230 Moyer Avenue, but I'm one of the people that's getting involved with doing the TNR. So I did wanted to just answer a couple of the questions that were brought up. So we're going to be partnering with the SPCA in Conshohocken, and they're going to be providing the TNR spots for us, and they will definitely be checking these cats for a microchip. Another really good way that we will know not to TNR your house cat is to put a collar on it. Hopefully that'll be a pretty easy option for us to decipher, you know, the community cats and people's house cats. The one question that I did have is, in the revisions to this ordinance, I know that at one point it did state that you were planning on banning people from feeding the feral cats. Is that language still in this, or is that something that we've done away with?
Well, the ordinance is specific to a person feeding where the feeding causes a perceived nuisance to neighbors or creates a contrary health, safety, and welfare of the community. So it's not just an immediate, you're feeding a feral cat and it's prohibited. It's whether or not there are adjacent homeowners who are perceiving it to be a nuisance or contrary to a health or safety condition. And just to clarify, our ordinance does, as you're stating in your program, encourages an identification tag of some sort, and also specifies that, you know, the cats should remain on individual property. So I think that there's some good feedback from tonight as well when we're looking at the cat section of the ordinance.
This is Alex Catania again, and can I make a comment regarding the collars and all these things for cats? Because I just asked about this yesterday. I was at Hickory Vet, which, you know, was a pretty well-respected vet in our area. And I brought this up to my vet, and he said, the only collar I can recommend for a cat is a breakaway collar. And he said, I know that is a huge issue because the cats are able to take them off very easily. If they get caught on something, they're going to come off. So I just don't think that's like the solution, honestly, which is what Liz says is a very easy solution, but it's not really an easy solution. I put collars on my cats. They disappear in one day.
Yeah.
So just please take that into consideration. I mean, my 4-year-old daughter at the time during COVID, you know, now I don't know. I only learned months later that these cats are trapped and released on Maple Street, and I live at 137 West 7th Avenue. At the same time my cat went missing, it was chipped, it was spayed, it was everything you're supposed to have with a cat. It couldn't stay in my house. I had a new baby. I was very sick after having a baby, and my 4-year-old daughter was heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken over this. So, you know, take that into consideration. When you're also taking into consideration people's complaints, please take into consideration people's feelings about their animals as well. And you can say, oh, they have to stay in their yard, but that's not really a reality, because if it were a reality, we would see that more often. If it was a reality to put your cat on a leash, then we would see people walking their cats. You know, I don't want to let my cats out, but I don't have a choice about that. That cat ripped every single solitary screen in my house and went out. So it wasn't an option to leave it in. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration. And I'm sure there's many people who were in the same position as me. You know, dogs can go in a yard and run around and have freedom, but that's not how it works with a cat. So I think we need to take that. I'm all for don't feed cats on the public sidewalk. I would never like it if my neighbors fed 30 feral cats. But we're talking, you know, but how do you differentiate between 30 feral cats and, you know, the 2 cats in my alley? I mean, I know you say that it would be somebody complaining, but how do you know somebody just chooses not to complain? How come someone may not like me? The person across the alley doesn't like me and decides to complain about my cats because now you've opened up this resource to them.
Well,
So
yeah, we have your comment. I have it on file. We have it noted.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Alex. Is there anyone else for public comment?
Yes, this is Sean Purcell, 226 East Fifth Ave. Just in regards to some of the cat comments, all for finding rehomes for these cats, but the reality of it is that trap and release, if we start out with 200 cats, 5 years from now, we have 190 cats. And I don't think that irresponsible pet ownership is an excuse to back away from any of the ordinances that have been proposed to be moved forward. I mean, my other question is, I guess, for the borough is an outdoor cat considered an off-the-leash pet? And can the owner be, if identified, fined for their animal that's off-leash? You got to take into consideration that these cats do go missing. Some of them just go feral. It happens. It's adding to the solution. It's adding to the current issue that the borough is facing and paying $25,000 a year. Many residents calling in and discussing issues with, you know, disease, nuisance of smell, all that, you know, the rest of the borough residents have to put up with. You know, it's almost negligent to release a feral cat into a neighborhood only to have it pass disease on to another resident's animal. I mean, the first thing you do when they take a cat to the SPCA, they ask you if it scratched anyone. I think you really need to take that into consideration as you're progressing and moving forward with this ordinance that, again, all for trying to trap and find them homes. But I mean, I think the big thing that needs to be addressed here is that outdoor cats are neighborhood cats. It's either under your control or it's not under your control. And all pets need to be under control as far as current understanding of how the laws are written. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comment. And I'm sure that Stephanie did take notes on that. Anyone else for public comment?
I'm just
Yeah.
I just want to clarify real fast because there seems to be some questions in the chat function that the link for the meeting is not available. If you go right on the Borough website, it literally says October 6th Borough Council meeting notice. You click on it, the agenda is there, the video audio participation join meeting button is there. So just clarifying for the record that the live link to this meeting, which we are all on right now, is right on the homepage of the Borough of Conshohocken website. Thanks,
Thank you,
President Hunter.
Stephanie. Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment? Okay.
I'd like to respond just to a couple comments from the previous speaker. So
Alex, I'm going to have to stop you there. This is just a public comment. You can always email or call any of us, including Stephanie, with response to the public comments. But if this,
it's not the correct forum to be talking about a specific private operation on our public meeting. So again, Liz, if you have specific information you want us to pump out to the public, I'd be happy to do that at a later date.
Okay, great. Thank you.
okay, thank you. So again, is there anyone else for public comment? Okay, with that, I will say meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for all your comments, all your interest. It is truly appreciated. And have a good evening.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back and not adjourn that meeting. Mayor Aronson, do you have anything this evening?
Colleen, I actually don't know. Did we go through our written public comment?
Stephanie, do we have any public comment?
So we started with public comment on the call. Is there any written comment, Brittany, that was submitted?
We did receive 8 written public comments. So the first comment is from Mike and Trish Dinolfi at 114 West 10th Avenue. The Dinolfis write, just writing to share 100% support of the animal ordinance. We do not have any cats and we consistently have cat poop and pee all over our property. Last spring, we had a major flea problem from the outdoor cats that cost us over $1,000 to get under control. We cannot have mats outside or leave anything on our back patio because if we do, it gets peed on. Our detached garage and trash cans all smell of cat pee from the constant pee and the cats all around our home. As a lifelong resident, this problem is getting worse and something needs to be done. Cat owners need to be responsible for their cats. The next comment is from Katie Curlin at 331 Spring Mill Avenue. The National Feline Research Council states that 2 unsterilized cats can produce 420,000 cats in 7 years. That amounts to 1 cat per household in the city of Philadelphia. These cats are adorable at first blush, but they cause many issues for community members, house pets, and the landscape. Take a moment to review Stephen Wren's book, Cat Wars, The Devastating Consequence of a Cuddly Killer, and understand that these feral cats are responsible for the extinction of more than 60 species. On a local level, when individuals feed these feral cats, they are inviting raccoons and skunks that carry rabies into our backyards, which is a public nightmare. Note that cats are now the most common domestic vector to spread rabies, and our pets are the first to fall victim to this transmission. The waste of the cats are uncontrolled and spread about our backyards. Children have been unable to play in the grassy areas with the cat waste, and dogs have gotten extremely ill from ingestion. Cat waste can contain harmful bacteria and parasites, which can be transmitted to humans. And just because the cat doesn't look like it's infected, it can very well have parasites. Please assist us in getting control of these feral cats before it becomes a larger issue in the Conshohocken community. It already has a large issue in Philly. Please know that this may not be an issue on your street now, but if this problem is not resolved, you too will soon face these risks if we do not face the facts. Please support the animal ordinance. The next comment is from Sam Nagel, 350 West Elm Street. I am in full support of the cat ordinance being proposed for voting tonight. I hope it gets passed, as many other residents do as well. The next comment is from Eric Dalford, 350 West Elm Street. Hello, I would like to add input for tonight's meeting. I am in full support of the cat ordinance vote to be passed after dealing with stray cat issues in town and seeing evidence of residents feeding upwards of 20 strays at a time by the Haynes and Salvati Memorial Park. The next comment is from Tim Donahue, 623 East Hector Street. I'm emailing to let you know that I am in support of the animal ordinance. We should not be attracting stray or feral cats into our neighborhoods where they can cause health issues for the people and pets already residing here. The ordinance also brings us in line with the ordinance of neighboring communities. The next comment is from Seth Pichowski, 335 Spring Mill Avenue. When it comes to the animal ordinance, I am in agreement that it is necessary to update the current legislation. Conshohocken is in a situation where the feral cat population continues to grow to continued breeding and negligence by the individuals who feed them. This has and will continue to worsen until an action is put into place to restrict this. From our own situation, we have seen a colony go from 2 to 12 cats in less than a year purely due to the lack of consideration from the folks that should. The ordinance proposed will put Conshohocken in a position that is in line with other cities and municipalities in the surrounding area that have been able to resolve the issues similar to ours. As a result of this, cats will focus on the mice found in the surrounding area, will prevent the spread of disease and eliminate the smells and waste that surrounding neighborhoods continue to face. Nobody wants cats harmed, and we believe this ordinance strikes a fair balance between treating cat owners with respect and dignity. This will also provide residents such as myself who endure property destruction, cat defecation, and rotting food some way to find help before things truly become a serious public health concern. The next comment is from Amy Kroll, 335 Spring Mill Avenue. I first want to thank you all for your time and ears listening to what the people have to say regarding the animal control ordinance. I am in agreement that the proposed update to the proposed update of the animal control ordinance. The feral cat population is increasing exponentially. In the year and a half that I have lived in Conshohocken, the cat colony next door to me has had 3 litters. By that 3rd litter, we were fed up with the situation and our neighbor refused to do anything about it. They feel bad for the cats and want to continue feeding them and not harm them. We, my boyfriend and I, reached out to Spay and Save for help to TNR and find homes for the kittens. Spay and Save was thankfully able to talk to our neighbors into allowing them to place traps in their yard. They were able to catch all of the kittens and the mom and some of the other cats. However, the professional trappers had difficulties and they were unsuccessful in catching the tomcat, even with fresh salmon and tuna. If the tomcats aren't caught, it will be a never-ending cycle. The cats could be domesticated. The cats could be domesticated, were sent to no-kill shelters, and the rest were brought back. Currently, there are 5 cats living on my neighbor's porch with the expectation that it's only going to continue to worsen. In addition to using our time and energy working with Spay and Save, we put up a privacy fence around our yard to help keep cats from using our yard as a bathroom. Our dog has eaten their feces and it's gotten sick from it, so that was another added expense. Even the privacy fence, the cats still find a way onto our deck, and I'm cleaning up their vomit every other day, it seems. This proposed animal ordinance will put us in line with the ordinance of towns around us, including West Conshohocken. We understand the change won't be instant, and it may take months to years for the situation to improve, but at least this is a step in the right direction. If individuals want to continue to feed cats, why not take them inside and adopt them? Give them heat and shelter during the cold months. Take responsibility and ownership for them as others would for domestic cats, dogs, etc. And the final comment is from Tanisha Patel and Evan O'Connor, 125 East 4th Avenue, Apartment 2. As residents of the Borough of Conshohocken, we take serious objection to several regulations proposed in the recent animal control ordinance, amending Chapter 2, Animals on Ethical and Humanitarian Grounds. Regarding Section 1, Curbing of Dogs, we find Regulation 2-102 to be inhumane, infeasible, and unfounded. First, First, prohibiting dogs from running freely is not ethical. Dogs require exercise to maintain their health and wellness. Due to the zoning of this town, many people live on properties with yards very close to their neighbors. And in the absence of a fence or other barrier, keeping dogs off of other properties will be challenging to track and monitor. Residents who do not wish to have their neighbors' pets on their properties can invest in a fence. Further, many people do not have yards in which their dogs can play. This includes residents of the many new condominium complexes in Conshohocken. This regulation will effectively prevent these residents' dogs from getting proper exercise and living happy lives. This issue is compounded by the lack of open space in the borough for dogs to run, as many of the parks have no dog policies. We understand that other residents may seek comfort in this regulation, feeling worried that free running dogs may harm them. However, if individual dogs are deemed dangerous or bite or attack a person, there are already policies in place through which citizens can file individual claims and seek damages. We ask the borough to consider for what reason this is necessary and what purpose will be achieved by this. Is there a legitimate threat of dog attacks in the neighborhood, or are we sacrificing the freedom of dog owners to make their own decisions about handling their pets without legitimate cause? No evidence has been demonstrated in my knowledge that there is any recent issue of dog bites, let alone that this is a rising problem. In my experience in the neighborhood, most dogs are on a leash anyway, and those who aren't are well behaved and do not pose a threat. Part 2, regarding Section 3, Part 2, Stray and Feral Regulations. 2-201. We find the borough's definition stray cat to be incorrect. The Humane Society defines stray and feral cats as follows. A stray cat is a pet who has been lost or abandoned, is used to contact with people, and is tame enough to be adopted. A feral cat is of the offspring of stray or other feral cats and is not accustomed to human contact. Feral cats is usually too fearful to be handled or adopted. Many cat owners do allow their cats to spend time outside, but these cats usually stay close to their home property. The definition of stray cat provided by this ordinance incorrectly identifies outdoor cats as stray cats and effectively prohibits owners of outdoor cats from feeding their own pets. 2-202. We find this regulation to be inhumane, vague, and not evidence-based. As an initial matter, the standard set in this provision, namely that, quote, where such feeding causes a nuisance or creates a condition contrary to the welfare of the community, unquote, is impermissible, vague, and impossible for any citizen to interpret it in a given situation. The result will invariably be a significant reduction, if not total cessation, of feeding feral/stray cats. This very well may be the intention behind the proposal. However, the apparent strategy to lower the stray and feral cat population by starving them through the removal of a previously reliable food source is unnecessarily cruel. Moreover, such a plan risks damaging other native wildlife, as these cats, in their desperation to survive, will likely increase hunting activities in the area. The plan proposed by the ordinance seems increasingly vicious in the face of a viable, humane alternative. A trap, neuter, return strategy has been proven effective in the past, and there is no reason to believe that such efforts will not be effective here. In fact, the proposed Animal Control Office is the perfect authority to organize and execute such a plan. Regarding Section 4, Part 3, the definition of tract of land in this provision is inherently inequitable. The majority of homes in the borough are not detached. This will inevitably advantage people who are wealthier. Female only, no rooster allowed. What is the reason for this? Presumably the male roosters may be seen as a loud annoyance, but there's much more obtrusive sounds in the barrier. A rooster's call pales in comparison to the cacophony of train horns, motorcycles, and other common city noises. Any neighbors irked enough by the sound can pursue relief through other provisions of the city ordinance, namely Chapter 5, Part 2. Indeed, the proposed ordinance provides that Chapter 10 covers animal ordinances or animal noises, which calls into question the need for a rooster ban at all. The provision requiring chickens to be kept in a coop or a pen at all times is inexplicably inhumane. This provision turns pets into prisoners, forced to live their entire lives in a small enclosed space. It is not fair to the animals nor their owners, who may be capable of allowing them out with supervision. The provision requiring chicken coops and chicken pens to only be located in the rear yard, and the provision requiring coops to be 20 feet from the property line and 30 feet from the adjacent building is inequitable. Such a provision punishes residents who cannot afford large yards, which in Conshohocken is an increasingly common occurrence. These parameters must be more inclusive to permit more residents to enjoy the option of having chicken companions. Section 6, Part 5, Enforcement. The proposed ordinance enforcement scheme is extremely problematic for several reasons. The violation schedule should include a formal warning system before the imposition of fines. Any of the ordinance's proposed violations are based on subject and vague standards impossible to be interpreted by citizens. Citizens should have the opportunity to be warned that conduct violates the code before sanctions are applied. It would be unjust to fine citizens for violations they were incapable of knowing they had committed. The authorization of private citizen actions against violators is especially ill-advised. Such a plan would be dangerous precedent of a community policy. Tasking each resident with the responsibility of enforcing the code against their neighbors breeds suspicion and division. The code could be used as a weapon to threaten neighbors with civil action. This strategy also appears unnecessary in the face of the proposal of creating the office of an animal control officer, whose main job function, presumably, would be to enforcing animal-related code provisions. By way of context, our comments: we are not dog owners, chicken owners, nor do we feed feral and stray cats. Our position against the above sections of the proposed ordinance stems solely from our love of Conshohocken and our sincere hope that it can afford its residents fully rich and happy lives. We urge you, Borough Council, to vote against this ordinance in its current form, as it rips away such opportunity for one of Conshohocken's most vulnerable and voiceless population, its animals. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. And I think with that, the written public comments are concluded.
Thank you, Brittany.
Welcome.
Is Mayor Aronson still on?
Yeah, my network seems a little slow, so I turned off my video.
Okay.
But happy to do my update. So we had our restaurant rally from Ambucks 2 weeks ago, which took place all over the borough. Many of our businesses participated, and it was great to be able to visit all of them for a good cause. Conshohocken Ambucks is a local nonprofit that helps to bring programming and ADA-compliant bicycles to children with special needs. So a big thank you to everyone who supported the rally. We also had the Egyptian Festival at St. Mary Mercurius, and it was always great. It was great to be back, certainly after COVID. And Father Andrew told me how welcoming and at home the church has felt in Conshohocken since its opening, and I know we are all happy to have them in our community and in that wonderful space. And then finally, just a reminder, we have the annual Halloween parade back this year. It's happening on October 23rd, 4 p.m. at Marywood Park. Registration will be open for kids and dogs from 3 to 3:45. Council members will be judging costumes for kids and adults, and our dog park committee members will be judging pets. I'm thrilled to see this event back, and really all the events I spoke about tonight. So I look forward to seeing everyone at the parade. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Aronson. Ms. Barton, do you have anything this evening? Anita, you're muted.
You're good. Sorry about that. I just wanted to thank my residents for contacting me and feeling that they could speak their minds and know that I would listen. And I welcome any comments anytime, and I'm hoping they all know that. Thanks.
Thank you, Anita. Mr. Stokely? Mr. Stokely, are you still on? Okay. Mr. Griffin?
I have nothing this night.
Thank you. Ms. Sokolowski?
I have nothing tonight. Thank you.
Ms. Kingsley?
Nothing. Thank you, Colleen.
You're welcome. I have nothing else this evening other than to thank everyone for participating this evening, and thank everyone on council for their hard work and the administration for their hard work. And with that, I will say meeting adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night.